Welcome back to the Lift Free and Diet Hard podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Coates. Join me along with industry leaders and friends on a quest to get more people through the gym door and eating and living healthier. Join me where evidence meets empathy while rejecting fitness industry fads and extremism. Let's begin. Dr. Sean Pastuch, great to have you on, my friend, the founder of Active Life. And between your public speaking stuff and being a father to, well, a whole lot of kids, it feels like you're single-handedly trying to help reverse the population, birth rate decline. You're a proud father, and it's great to have you on. And we were recently in Dallas for Raise the Bar in February, both speaking at that event. So it's good to see you again.
It's good to see you too. And yeah, we're 4 kids, but we're done. We're and done. It's official. We're out.
Four is a lot these days. So, and I know that with work in your company, you managed to build yourself into a situation where you have the company running so smoothly that it's been able to let you step away, think big picture stuff, develop your brand, work on some stuff. I know you're working on a book, and spend more time with your kids, which is how it should be done, right?
That's exactly right.
All right. So on the theme of, more freedom and doing more things in life, let's dive into some pain stuff. You talk a lot about this. So here's a quote that I've seen you post. There are 2 kinds of people who are in pain today. The kind who live less to appease the pain, which got me really thinking, wow, that's powerful. And the kind who live more to hurt less. Talk to me about this.
We have pain management backwards in the United States. Just think about the phraseology, pain management. Manage your pain. I don't want to manage my pain. I want to eliminate my pain. And what happens is it's become so common that people have started to think it's normal for somebody to say, I have this ache, I have this pain, I have this injury. And so what happens is we start to compromise on the way that we live. We stop playing softball. We stop getting on the ground and playing with kids. We say things like, if I did that, my body would explode. And everybody laughs like it's normal. And I believe that of the 55 million Americans who wake up in chronic pain every single day, I don't think any of them actually care about the pain. I think what they care about is the part of their life that they lose to the pain. And so what I'm describing when I talk about us not having a pain problem, but a settling problem, is that we allow the pain to dictate what we are and are not allowed to do in our lives. And that leads to all kinds of other issues that we can't resolve by muting the pain that we have.
This episode is brought to you by KNKG, my favorite gym bag brand. For years, I did 2 stupid things. I bought cheap gym bags, which eventually fell apart, and I traveled with and checked a big suitcase. KNKG changed all that. In 2020, my aunt bought me a KNKG. Back then, they were known as King Kong duffel bag. Here it is. 5 years later, it's still indestructible. And last year, I spent hours on YouTube researching backpacks for travel. And I kept coming back to the KNKG Edge, which now goes everywhere with me. Travel, gym, work. I also just got a KNKG Conquer backpack and their Plus duffel bag. And these are both perfect for the gym. My main issue is I have too many bags and I can only use one at a time. Investing in high quality gear means you save money in the long run too. And I can save you guys 15% on yours. Go to www.knkg.com/Andrew59676. That's www.knkg.com/Andrew59676, or go to the link in the show notes. And there's a further quote that I just want to throw out there because I like this one too. You've said, it's not the pain that hurts, it's a life half lived. And that sounds very retrospective for the people who probably realize, wait a second, I missed out on a lot of life because I either was in pain or I had a narrative. And I think this is a power. I had a narrative around pain that kept me from doing things.
Well, it's a combination of a narrative around pain that's stopping you from doing things and the fear around doing things because of pain. And I think that happens because people are poorly informed about what pain actually is. We're taught, if it's painful, don't do it. But we're never taught how to decide if something is painful or not. It's just assumed everybody has the same definition. If we went and asked 100 trainers, Andrew, please define pain, I think we get close to 100 definitions. So how are the people who are being told by their doctors and by their trainers, if it hurts, don't do it. If it hurts, we can work around it. How are we supposed to assume that all of those people are thinking about the same sensation as one another when the people who are telling them don't have the same definitions? And if that's true, how many people are avoiding the things that they absolutely need to do in order to be successful because they think that that's the thing they're supposed to avoid? That's where the problem lies. That's where the solution is.
How many people use the pain and the narrative around pain as a socially acceptable way to avoid things? It becomes part of their identity. And on some level, this is actually what they want. It's become a socially acceptable excuse to avoid social situations or physical activity. And especially as someone is maybe sliding into obesity and metabolic unhealth. And then it's like, well, oh, my pain limits me from actually taking responsibility for this. And I know that there's always going to be the people who like get really twisted about this sort of thing. But at the end of the day, I like challenging narratives and stories because they're oftentimes the reason why people are struggling and suffering.
Well, let me tell you a short story then, because I'll preface it by saying this. At Active Life, we think about all different populations of people who have pain. There's 55 million in just the United States alone who wake up in chronic pain every day. It costs the U.S. more money than cancer, diabetes, and heart disease combined annually. Of the people in chronic pain, the 55 million, 44% have anxiety disorder and 36% have depression. So it's a huge problem. Now, when we look at trying to solve for that problem, we could say we help people in chronic pain, but we don't. Because we only help people who are in chronic pain who also identify as active people. Meaning the people who you just described, the ones who would say, I can't because of this, and they like that, they take the excuse, they take the out. We don't want to and can't help that person. We would love to help them live a better life, but they have to want to live a better life first. So we're focused on the people who identify as an active person who would absolutely do even more if they had less or no pain, if pain wasn't stopping them. So now I'll share the story I was talking about with you. I was at an event recently, and there was a very well-respected PhD speaking from the stage about HIIT, all the VO2 max benefits of HIIT. He's a healthy guy. He's a fit guy. He's an extremely well-published guy. And he stops his talk to speak to Don Saladino specifically, because Don was going to be running a workout later in the day for everybody who was in the room. And he says something along the lines of, now, Don, I got a knee thing, so take it easy on me later today, all right? And everybody in the room laughed. And it was just a throwaway line. But not to me. I texted Mike Stella when I heard everybody laugh, and I said, everybody just laughed out of a relief of anxiety that they had about the workout later today, because they relate to what he just said on the stage. And I don't have 100% certainty that that's true, but I'm fairly certain that it is. And that's a problem, because that room was full of high-performing people who can solve every other problem in their life. But they believe this is just the best that it gets when it comes to their knee, their shoulder, their back. And it's not. And I'm fascinated by that cognitive dissonance that a room full of high performers would have, that this is just the best it gets physically, when nothing else in their life would they accept that for.
This episode is brought to you by Macros First. I've always struggled with nutrition tracking apps, even the slightest hassle or friction, and it breaks my habit. That changed with Macros First. When I tried it, I told my friend, the founder, Jacob, quote, this is, well, let's just call it a certain other app on steroids. It's the easiest app to use, and it has a free barcode scanner, which if you use tracking apps, you know this is a really big deal. I recommend Macros First to all my clients and friends, and even had them sponsor my 2024 conference. Here's an example feature that I love. The verified food database. Remember using other apps and searching for a food only to find 10 to 50 similar options with different macros, not knowing which one to pick. This kind of friction is the shit that made me quit tracking altogether. Macros First, every single food item in the database, over 3 million of them, is human verified. No junk entries, so you can trust the numbers. Plus, that free barcode scanner makes logging faster. And if the barcode doesn't turn anything up, Just point your camera at the nutrition label and Macros First will extract all the nutrition info instantly. All this just makes tracking easier. Macros First is free on the Apple App Store or Google Play. And if you use the code Andrew, all caps, my first name, you'll get an extended free trial of Macros First Premium. That unlocks a bunch of features that make tracking way easier and faster.
Going back to the comment about anxiety and the other, depression. What do you think's the directionality there? Is it reciprocal? Do you think that people who are prone to anxiety and depression are more prone to experiencing physiological pain? Do you think that the pain, whatever that's limiting them, is contributing to the anxiety and depression? Insights?
Good question. It's a little bit of all of that. So there is good research, and I'm not the first guy to go quoting research, but there is good research that people who've had 3 or more traumatic incidences emotionally as children are infinitely more susceptible to chronic pain as adults. There is a very clear link between emotion and pain and consciousness and pain, to the degree that if you hurt yourself doing an activity, when all of the tissue is repaired, you can still get pain doing the activity, despite a lack of tissue injury in the area where you're feeling the discomfort. Now, I think that gets overwritten on as a purely emotional and mental issue. And there is a function loss that drives discomfort when people go to reuse something they haven't used in 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever have you. But let's put that aside for a moment. Imagine yourself mapping out a vision for your life, and then you go to the authority who is supposed to help you live that vision. And the authority tells you, I'm sorry, that's no longer in the cards for you. If they did that in your love life, in your relationships with friends, in your career, if they gave you an absolute, I'm sorry, but that's not possible anymore, how would that affect you? That's exactly what happens to people when they go to their doctor and say, my back is bothering me. And the doctor says this, I don't think there's really anything that we can do. You have degenerative disc disease, and absent of surgery, which isn't necessary yet, this is kind of the, you got to learn how to live with this. We have people getting spells cast upon them by the authority in the space that they go to be able to live a complete life. And then we expect those people to be happy on the other side of that spell being cast. I just think that's an impossibility.
Well, that's a contributing factor to where some of the stories and narratives come from. Sometimes it's some sort of internalized belief that someone has crafted for themselves to protect their ego or identity. I think that's like what all story and narrative is. Or post-rationalization to a socially acceptable spin on a decision that someone made emotionally or instinctively, right? I think that underpins most of it. But if you've got, an authority, a doctor who in that dynamic of the relationship has tremendous authority and tells someone, hey, you can't go do this sport. Well, guess what? It just feeds that. Now, I'm sure that there are an overwhelming majority of those people that would really like to do the thing they love. But I think there's probably a smaller subsection that actually, a sigh of relief. Now the pressure's off me to actually have the responsibility to be physically active or do any of these things.
Yeah,
right?
But if we focus on the people who really want that activity back, how are they supposed to maintain a high level of self-esteem, a high level of enthusiasm for life, when the things that they most look forward to are taken from them? And now remember that same person goes to the gym, and they might go to a trainer and say, look, I don't know, maybe I can get some help here. And the most common thing that the trainer is going to say, at no fault of their own, it's what they're taught, is don't worry about it. If it hurts, we can totally work around it. But to the person who hears that, it's the same message. It's, you can't do that. And these people hear it everywhere. And then they go and they talk to their friends. And their friends are like, dude, same for me. My shoulder, I haven't played pickleball in 2 years. That's why I don't play pickup softball anymore. Yeah, that's why I stopped lifting heavy weights 5 years ago. They start to hear these things, and that narrative becomes their reality. And, it doesn't have to be. We can do much better for those people.
This episode is brought to you by Just Bite Me Meals. I work long days and I won't compromise my client experience or sacrifice my workout, sleep, or nutrition. So I needed a quality and reliable meal prep service so I could save time on cooking and shopping and have more time for the stuff that matters. Net out the cost of groceries and the service isn't as much as you might think, and regular impulsive food delivery apps eating out that cost way more anyway. I get more meal variety and less dishes to clean, and I've been referring clients to Just Bite Me Meals for a long time, and I recently started ordering myself. Food is great. The beef brisket tacos are my favorite so far, and there's a lot of menu choice. Your calories and macros are listed. The portions are great. You can order custom meals. They deliver to your door, or you can pick up from their storefront. And I'm sorry to listeners outside of Alberta, but Just Bite Me Meals is currently just in Edmonton, Calgary, Grand Prairie, and Fort McMurray. Ordering from Just Bite Me Meals made my life easier instantly. And you can get 10% off on all your orders using my code, Andrew Coates Fitness, all caps, on their website. That's Andrew Coates Fitness, all capitals, or go to the link and the code in the show notes.
There's a couple of things in here that's worth highlighting because you alluded to it, but I'll say it explicitly. Pain as a signal is not a one-to-one indication that there is structural damage or injury. To understand pain, there are effectively receptors that, quote, send a signal, experience something, you send a signal to the brain, and the brain interprets whatever that stimulus is as pain, which goes to what you were saying about there can be no injury present, past injury, sure, everything's healed, but because of whatever expectation, the brain has sent a signal saying, hey, this feels painful. And so the pain feels very real to the person experiencing it, but the mechanism may not be because there's a physical injury present. So just getting people aware of that can then help it's not about not trusting pain at all, but to be a little bit suspicious of why we're getting a pain signal and going, well, what other evidence is present that maybe there is something wrong I need to treat seriously, or maybe I need to actually work through this. And the second thing I was going to say was, this aligns with something that's come up a lot with, I've had several episodes in the last, 30 or so with people like Dr. Sam Spinelli, a doctor of physical therapy, Adam Meekins, again, another prominent physical therapist. There's been Dr. Susie Spurlock. And if we have injury and pain, which are not one-to-one, but there's a relationship, then it's not avoiding certain types of movement. In fact, the most important thing is to actually get the body really strong, which I know you're big on. And it certainly is appropriately loading the tissue that it's experiencing pain or the joint, so that way it actually helps strengthen it. Do you want to go deeper into that?
I would love to. The first thing I want to do for your audience is give them a definition for pain that they can all agree on. So we start there, because pain is real. And when we say things, and I agree with you, it gets interpreted in your brain. There's a potential thought for people to say that we're just telling them that it's in their head. And it's not the dismissive just, right? It starts in your head. And now we have to figure out what to do with it. So the definition for pain is that it's a negative emotional response to stimulus. It's as simple as you felt something and you didn't like it. Nothing more, nothing less. And a really good example to point that out is if I walked up to you right now and punched you in the face, it might hurt. If I walked up to Tyson Fury right now and punched him in the face, professional boxer, world champion, it's not going to hurt. But he hasn't developed the muscles of his face to such a degree that he doesn't feel pain the same way. His brain interprets what he just experienced differently than you did. But you both experienced the exact same stimulus. So the decision there is critical. He has experience with it. You don't. He decided that's not a problem. You didn't have that decision filter. So now what happens is the more that we're uncertain about where that discomfort is coming from, the more the pain amplifies. I'll give you another example of that. If right now you started to feel a little bit of a headache come on, and then you started to experience blurry vision, and then light really started to bother you, and then you saw a little black floater in front of you, and then you felt dizzy to the point of you wanted to throw up, and then it started to amplify to the point that you were like, there's a knife stabbing me in the back of my eyeball, and you've never experienced that before, you're probably going to the hospital in excruciating pain. But if you get cluster headaches or migraine headaches, that's a Tuesday. You don't have to go to the hospital. You're not experiencing that the same way as someone who's never had it before. And so once again, the certainty of where that's coming from and what's to do about it influences significantly what we actually feel. Do you follow me there?
Absolutely. I mean, it's similar in a sense. I injured my knee. I mentioned this a few times for regular listeners, probably a little over a year ago. Fell down my stairs, socks and carpet, bag crumble on stairs, and moving too fast, right? I still think I'm really young. And I fell, leg got buckled under me, and Sam Spinelli, actually, he happened to be in town, so I had him look at it, and he figures it was a grade 1 ACL sprain, might be a couple other things within the knee. And it's funny because everything you're talking about reminds me of this, where even just body weight freely squatting, I'm very tentative about that knee. I can put on knee sleeves and load up a pendulum squat or dumbbell reverse lunge or split squat as heavy as ever. No problem whatsoever. There's something about the free balancing of a body weight squat just doesn't feel right. But when Sam, because I mean, I was worried that maybe I'd actually had a more serious injury, fully torn an ACL or meniscus, like a big tear. And after Sam evaluated it, and another friend, physical therapist of mine, Brendan DeForge, who's also local, I got to shout him out. I'd also had him look at it again. He was pretty convinced there's no, nothing was ripped clean off. But guess what? My fear around it and my willingness to actually do the things, like I would not be loading the pendulum squat. I would not have been, heavy Bulgarian split squatting if I thought, oh, my ACL is missing. So just their professional, because I trust these guys, are very evidence-based, trusting that their assessment going, no. I mean, there's something here, but it's not catastrophic. Boy, it gave me a lot back. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I had a client back in the day when I was working with CrossFit athletes named Jeremy Kinnick. And Jeremy came to me because he couldn't squat at all since the CrossFit Games the year prior. And he knew he would need to for the following year. So I put him through a movement screen and I told him, I don't think there's anything structurally wrong with your knee. And I believe that this is much more fear-based than anything else now. And so what I want you to do tomorrow is find a 20 rep max front squat. And he's like, no, you don't understand. Like, I can't squat. It hurts so bad when I squat. I said, I understand. And it might hurt really bad when you squat tomorrow. But it's really important that I learn what your 20 rep max squat is for what it is that I'm going to be doing with you. It wasn't important that I knew his 20 rep max squat. That wasn't true at all. And mind you, I'm not telling everybody with knee pain to go find a 20 rep max squat or to just test their pain. I knew there was nothing structurally wrong with Jeremy. I knew he needed to get through something long enough that his brain could decide, okay, shut the pain off. We're going to be in this too long to deal with pain. That he would come out on the other side and say, hey, I can do that. And so after his 20 squats, he called me almost frantically. And he said, you're not going to believe it. I said, what? He goes, I just did 20 squats. I said, why do you think I wouldn't believe it? I prescribed it for you. He goes, well, I didn't think I'd be able to. I said, right. You hired me to help you think bigger about yourself than you can think yourself. And so from that day on, he never had knee pain. Now, that doesn't mean that he was out of the woods for experiencing any injury in the future. He had work that needed to be done to recover from any injury that he did genuinely experience months before. But the pain he was experiencing was fear-based, not tissue-based. So I like to give people parameters around how to know, like give yourself some certainty around, should I do this or is this going to cause a problem? Because I believe that if people feel the safety of parameters, they're going to do things they otherwise might not do. So for example, if you're thinking about squatting again, but you're like, I don't know, it bothers my knee every time I squat. There's a very real chance that what you need to eliminate your knee pain is squats. So how do you do both at the same time? Endure the discomfort and get the squats in. You set parameters for yourself. The parameters, there are 4 very simple parameters that we use at Active Life. The first is on a scale of 1 to 10, how uncomfortable is it? Is it less than a 5 or is it more than a 5? There's got to be some subjectivity to it. A 10 is we're stopping what we're doing right now, we're going to the hospital. A 1 is you're relaxing on the couch. Where is it between those two? If it's less than a 5, we're okay. Let's keep going. From rep to rep, it gets better or stays the same. We're good. Let's keep going. If as soon as we stop, the discomfort goes away, That's amazing. We didn't cause any significant damage. If we tore a muscle in the middle of the set, it would still hurt afterwards. So us being able to do a set and not feel something afterwards is indicative that we did not make the problem worse. And then finally, 24 to 48 hours later, is there focal discomfort in the area where you had it during the set, as if you were still in the set? And if the answer to that is no, we're in the clear. Now you know, okay, I can squat. Let's say that you do feel things above a 5 where it's getting worse. Reduce the load. How do I reduce the load if I'm doing air squats? Grab a post. Use your arms to create less weight on the way down and less weight on the way up. And work yourself into doing full body weight. As long as we stay within the parameters I just described, we're going to be sending signals to our brain that this movement is going to happen whether you like it or not. So find a way to shut the pain off so I can do it. If we ignore the signals, we can cause injury. But if we respect the brain's role in it, we respect the tissues involved, we respect progressive overload, we respect a long time horizon, we get everything back.
What about someone's relationships and the environment that they're in? How much of an influence does this have on someone's experience of pain?
If you want to become a millionaire, spend a lot of time with 5 millionaires and you'll become the 6th. That's not controversial. You've seen it on Instagram, you've heard it on podcasts, and it makes sense when you hear it.
Let's give a visceral example.
Sure.
There's a bunch of us that tend to gravitate to each other when we're at fitness events, right? Mm-hmm. Imagine the traders who, you, me, Nick Shaw of Renaissance Periodization, Luca Hosevar, and Mike Dola have a group chat, right? Now, guess what? Bullshit. A lot of the time we talk about genius shot from RP a whole lot, right? How good it is and how it's harder to get it in Canada. I'm pissed off about it. But, that's a group that I enjoy being, in discussion with on a regular basis because it's a lot of smart and successful people there. So it to your point, but go on.
It happens in that group to give people the tangible example of how it's valuable. Is if I started posting everything on my social media account was political, you guys would have a separate group chat with the 4 of them. And you'd be like, what is wrong with this guy? He's lost his mind. And someone in that chat would reach out to me and be like, hey, dude, you're going too far. And that would keep me in check.
Yeah.
Now, when you're in pain, if you're the person who's like, oh yeah, I can't play softball anymore. I don't lift heavy anymore. And all of a sudden, the 5 people who are around you are people who do play softball, who do lift heavy, who are doing the adventure race, who are going hiking. Well, you got to do that with them. And they're not going to tolerate you saying, I can't because X, Y, Z. They're just going to go and leave you behind. So now what happens is instead of the complacency setting in that happens when you're with the people you're hanging out with now, you have to find a way. And when you resign to finding a way, you will. And so the 5 people who you're around are just as curative for you as any doctor, any trainer, any protocol, any medication.
I've definitely noticed that people in my life, I want to be careful how I phrase this, who have become, you mentioned politics, and I stay the hell away from posting or talking about it, but there are people that I've known who have gotten in the orbit of someone who his entire identity is some sort of extremist politics, whether it's far left or far right. And then you can just see the change in the person. And usually it's someone who's already kind of vulnerable, doesn't have a strong sense of their place in the world, and maybe looking for it's sort of a Svengali effect. And then you pretty quickly realize you've kind of lost this person to whatever sort of like outrage narrative that they're caught up in. And so I said this recently on a podcast I appeared on, but I'm like, I generally try to stay away from those kind of people. But steering it back onto something relevant to this conversation. What about, I like this one. So I'll start with this quote. Why is the first step becoming more flexible to say, stop saying I'm not flexible as a limiting belief?
You're referring to the post that I made where I said, if you've been trying to get more flexible for years and nothing's changed, here are 3 or 4 uncommon suggestions at work, right? Identity is critical, man. And so if you identify somebody who's not flexible, you're going to find every way you possibly can to stay not flexible. It's more important to our brains that we're correct than that we make the change that we genuinely want in our lives. Because being correct provides certainty, and we're wired for wanting certainty before we do anything. So we'd rather wrap ourselves in the identity of, I know I'm not flexible. That means this is off the table, 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 but I can do this, 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 and this. If I stay within those parameters, I'm safe. So now what has to happen in order for us to be able to do the 4 things on the not allowed to do list is we have to decide we're becoming more flexible. If we don't do that, then we will continue to find reasons to believe that we're not flexible. We will reinforce our own bias, and we will become even less flexible over time, to the point that when we're at an event where we're all hanging out with our friends, oh yeah, you think you're not flexible? Watch how far down I go when I try to touch my toes. And it becomes like a badge of honor that you're the person who moves the worst in the group. We all know somebody like that. We've all seen somebody do something that is overtly self-deprecating to prove how bad their shoulder mobility is, or their back is, or their ankles are. And it's like, yeah, I'm really fucked up. Cool. Do you want to be? You don't have to be. But people would rather, or don't, whether they'd rather or not, I shouldn't actually discern. People often just default to the narrative that I'm stuck in this kind of a life. And then they find a way to fulfill that prophecy.
I think you're right. I think there's some people who want to be there. There's probably a lot who aren't, but I still think it comes back to, hey, let me wrap myself in this cloak of identity that protects me, protects my ego from dealing with situations that are uncomfortable or things that you've decided you're not good at. Therefore, you don't have to suffer what you think will be the ridicule or unpleasant experience of having to go do something that you simply haven't practiced or not skilled at. Definitely narratives around like, oh, I'm not athletic would be one of the ones. It's adjacent to I'm not flexible.
Yeah. Did you play sports growing up?
Yes.
Team sports?
Yes.
Okay. So here's an example I want people to put into their mind. There's a guy or a woman who was on your teams who in practice was lights out.
Mm.
And then when game time came, you're like, where did the practice player go? Right? You can imagine somebody like that who makes all of the shots, is always in the right place, does everything right in practice. You put them in a game and they're a mess because there's something on the line. Now,
I'm going to throw some shade at the poor Toronto Maple Leafs fans here, because I'm Canadian, and I'm fairly ambivalent about hockey outcomes, but the poor Leafs got bounced in 7 games. And there's a lot of criticism now about the quote core 4 players that have been with the team for a long time. And I guess when it's like a elimination game, a game 7, I think they're 0-6 or 0-7 since this group of young players showed up. And you contrast this, I'm in Edmonton. I'm not an overt Oilers fan by any means, but Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl seem to be absolute maniacs in the playoffs. It's like they're MVP caliber players, but then they raise it a notch in the playoffs. Whereas the Toronto guys, your Austin Matthews, your Mitch Marner, John Tavares, these guys fold like a cheap tent in the playoffs. And then they just did yet again, right? And yes, I think there's something about like people say, well, Alex Ovechkin or Steve Yzerman, it took them years to kind of learn how to win and what have you. But it just seems like this young group of guys, and Mitch Marner in particular, seems to be very emotionally soft. I'm sorry, it's a bit of a judgment, but just doesn't seem to have it when it comes down to high pressure games.
Well, the reason why I bring that up is because this is the same. It's just a lateral example of the same thing. If you allow yourself to say, no, like I'm not working on it. Like it is what it is. Then you're safe. It's done. It's over. There's no debate. But if you tell everybody, I'm going to become more flexible, now you're accountable to what you said you were going to do. And there's a risk. You risk failure now. And a lot of people are unwilling to risk that failure. There's a great example in sports that my favorite example is Gino Auriemma, who's the women's basketball coach at UConn. He's one of the, if not the, he's one of the most winningest women's basketball coaches of all time. Probably one of the most winning coaches of all time. He recruits All-Americans, period. It's like, that's it. Like, all of his players are legit. He runs a drill at the end of practice that he calls the pressure drill. And what he'll do is something as simple as every girl on the team is going to shoot a free throw. And we don't leave until every girl on the team has made their free throws consecutively. So you're number 1, you're number 12. Everybody shoots a free throw until everyone, 1 through 12, in a row without a miss, has made a free throw. That's one example of it. He does that because some of his best athletes, some of his best players will make that free throw if they're number 1 through 6, but they won't make it if they're number 9 through 12. And so now he knows if there's 2 minutes left in the game and things are close, that person's not on the court. And people from the stands are watching and they're thinking, how could you not have your best player on the court? Because he knows the best player chokes when the game is on the line because he's seen it in practice. And I like that example because we all have the ability to be the person who's on the court at the end of the game, if we are prepared to put ourselves into the spotlight of taking the chance. And that chance in the case of being in pain is, I am going to get back to all of the things that I used to do. Period. End of story. Now everyone knows you're not staying in the box that everyone told you to stay in. You risk being thought of as crazy. You risk failing. You risk spending a lot of money and not getting the results. You risk wasting a lot of time. You risk feeling shame. All of those things are now risks.
And fears.
100%. And most people would rather not take them.
You answered the next question with all that. I love it.
So if we, I imagine several of your listeners are coaches. The thing that we teach coaches to do is to give enough education and mentorship to their clients that their clients feel compelled to take that risk on themselves. And through taking that risk, they get better results than they anticipated, faster than they thought they would. It's not magic. We teach everyone's looking for the right corrective exercise. I took a biomechanics course. I took a corrective exercise course. I took a mobility course. I took a cars and cams course, all of the courses, right? And they're all great. And there's no shade at any of the courses. And I would venture to bet that most of the coaches who take those courses, when they're alone with themselves, would admit that they're not getting the results with their clients that they thought they were going to get at the speed that they thought they were going to get them, or the consistency that they thought they were going to get them. They're still trying to cobble things together. They're still looking for things that would tie those courses together that they can find on Instagram or on YouTube or in podcasts. And the real thing that matters is their ability to connect with the person across from them in a way that allows that person to trust the coach's belief in them more than their belief in themselves, so that they're forced to be successful.
A lot of good stuff here. All right. Another thing I pulled out of your media that I liked. So you wrote, well, actually, I'll ask the question here and I'll prompt you if need be, but what are the 4 steps to becoming a high performer that most people won't do? Do you remember these? Because I can riff them.
Of course I remember these. I wrote it.
All right.
So people should know, if I put it on my social media, it's because it's influenced my life. I've gone through it. I'm not posting theoretical stuff. I'm posting things that I've either experienced myself as the client or the end user, or things that I've taught to somebody else that they've then experienced and had success as a result of. Nothing on there is theoretical. So the 4 things that people don't do that make you a high performer are: do what you say you're going to do. Hey, I'll call you on Wednesday. Call me on Wednesday. Show up on time. Not early, not late. On time. If we have a 2:00 meeting and you show up at 1:55, you're distracting me. Show up at 2 like you're supposed to. By all means, sit in the parking lot until 1:59 and start walking in, but be on time. Step 3, Say please and thank you. Do it with a smile. Be grateful for the opportunity that you have. And step 4, finish what you start. If you start something, finish it. There are 2 different kinds of people, and they have the equal opposite weakness. There are the people who have very low energy threshold to start something. And there are the people who have very low energy threshold to finish something that someone else has started. So for example, in the book, what is it, The E-Myth? There's the visionary and there's the implementer. The visionary typically has a low threshold for having to start something. The implementer would probably not want to start something that's very expensive for them emotionally, but they're happy to take the thing the visionary came up with and see it through to the end. Well, in life, in relationships, we have to be both. Life isn't business. We have to be both. We don't get to delegate.
It's funny. Some of the most successful companies ever started with a visionary and an implementer. I mean, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak are the ultimate example. There are many others. It's funny. I love how you had 2 of the 4 you did word for word by memory, which I love. You did them out of the order you wrote them in, but that's irrelevant. But so 1 and 4, which were do what you say you're going to do, and 4, when you listen, was finish what you start. There's something here. Why don't people keep their commitments to themselves? And how damaging is not trusting yourself to follow through?
I think there's an implication that the reason why they don't finish what they start is because they don't trust themselves to follow through. And I'm not sure that that's why it happens, but let's dive into both.
Okay.
I think the reason why people oftentimes don't finish what they start is because they didn't think about whether they should say yes or no before they started. And then they get into it and they're like, I don't actually know how to finish this. So let me just tap out. You know, the number of people who offer me help with things is so high. And I'm so appreciative of the intention of all of the people who offer me help. The actual delivery of the help is probably less than 20%. And it's not for lack of specificity. It's not for lack of comprehension. It's because they didn't realize that they don't actually have the bandwidth to provide the help that they were offering to me. And they're not used to people saying yes. So what happens is someone says, I would love to help you get that going, or I'd love to help you get that out there. I'd love to share that with my audience, whatever it is, right? And then they don't. And it's not because they don't want to. It's because they didn't think before they said that about, can I? How would I? What would that get in the way of that I'm already doing? What's the opportunity cost? Is it going to be effective? Do I actually understand it fully? And when they get into the weeds of thinking about doing it, they don't. And so they disappear like Homer into the bushes and hope that I'm not like, hey, are we going to do that thing that we talked about? Now, I don't associate with the people who don't have the follow through after the first iteration of not following through, unless they come forward and say something like, hey man, I really blew it. I overcommitted, didn't have the capacity to do the thing. I apologize. Let's talk about how we can do something together in the future. I'm in for that. We all make mistakes. So I believe the number one reason why people don't finish is because they don't think about what it's going to take to finish before they say yes to starting. A second reason is because there's a large mundane period in the middle of starting and finishing. It's exciting to think about starting something new that we are unconsciously incompetent at doing. We don't know that we don't know how to do the thing. So we're like, let me just start it. See, how hard could it be? How hard could it be to, open my own CrossFit gym?
Well, let's take this somewhere else. You're describing the person who doesn't know how to work out and change their nutrition and lifestyle, but says, hey, I'm going to go join the gym. It's a perfect metaphor for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the person who says, I'm going to go start exercising doesn't understand how hard it is to get visible results from the exercise. They're getting results the first time that they walk into the gym. They're just subsensory. So they don't realize that that's what's happening. Now, what we're talking about here in the realm of what you're describing is a lack of discipline. And I believe that there's a misunderstanding of discipline. People believe discipline is an attribute or a characteristic that we should all chase and try to have. I don't think that it is at all. I think discipline is the obvious result of having a really meaningful purpose and a process that we trust to pursue it through. So if I said to you, I'm going to join the gym and I'm going to get in great shape, and then you ask me, why is that important to you? And I'm like, I don't know. I just think I should be in good shape. I'm failing. It's over. There's a very low percentage of people who would answer like that who are going to be successful. If I said to you, I went to the doctor and the doctor told me that if I don't change something, I'm going to have to be on a bunch of medications or maybe risk an early death, and I really want to be around for my kids. Well, now I have a strong purpose that I'm tied to, but I still might fail. I might fail if I just start going to the gym on my own without any clarity of what I'm doing or why I'm doing it, and the likelihood of that leading to the result of me bringing my blood markers down, losing the weight, getting out of pain, building the capable body. So if I, for example, had an unlimited amount of money and I hired the Andrew Coates to train me to go from where I am now to the person I said I wanted to be for the reason I said I wanted to be that person, I'm not quitting. I'm seeing it through because you give me the certainty of process and I have the meaningful purpose. Do you follow me there? I'm going to be disciplined because it's easier to be disciplined than to not be when I have both of those things. That's why I think people don't see things through. They lack one or the other. Now, the other side of it was, what was the second question that you asked there?
Because ultimately it is a very separate thought. But I'm fascinated by this because I believe that it's very damaging to someone's own trust in themselves when they don't follow through. They break promises to themselves. Yes. Is the way I like to frame it. So how damaging is that?
I think that it's equal parts cause and effect. So I think it's when we make promises to ourselves and we don't keep them, we rationalize the reason why we didn't keep the promise. Then what happens is the virtue of promise becomes unimportant. Nothing is of extreme value. Your boundaries aren't of extreme value. The things you say you want to do are not of extreme value. The values you say that you hold are not of extreme value. And so everything in your life becomes negotiable, including what you want your life to be like, how you want to see yourself, how you want other people to see you. So I think it's immeasurably damaging to break promises to yourself. The question I would ask people is, again, going back to the beginning, did you think through the promise before you made it? I have 4 kids. 3 of them are old enough to have cognition. The 4th is a year. So the 3 are old enough to have cognition. They know if I say, when daddy makes a promise, what does he do? Keeps it. They all know the second half of that sentence is keeps it. Now, what's the difference between a promise and everything else? If they say to me something like, Daddy, can we go bike riding after you get out of work today? I'll say, yes, we can go bike riding out of work today. If your homework is done, you've eaten dinner, if you've met these parameters. If they say, Daddy, can we go bike riding when you get home from work today? And I say, yes. And they say, do you promise? And I say, yes. Those parameters are out the window. We're going bike riding no matter what. There's a difference there. Now, I think people overthink how much they can do and underestimate who they need to be to do those things. Do you follow the difference there?
Yes. Side tangent. Do you think people avoid making promises because they don't believe they'll follow through by hedging the way that they frame the promise?
I don't think people are thinking that much. I think that when I listen to people speak, I hear a lot of soft talk. and lazy language. And I don't think it's on purpose. I think it's just it's in their unawareness. It's unconscious. So I'll give you an example of that. Then I'll go back to what I was going to describe in a moment. If you were stuck on the side of like, if I asked you, hey, you going to come out tonight? And you said, yeah, I'm going to try my best. You told me nothing. You told me absolutely nothing. And the best example of that is if I'm stuck on the side of the road and it's raining and I call you and I'm like, I'm stuck outside of my car on the side of the road. I need someone to come and pick me up now. Can you come? And you say, yeah, I'm going to try my best. I'm immediately calling somebody else.
Yeah.
I want a yes or a no. Period. And I think that oftentimes when we listen to the way that we speak and the way that other people speak, there's a lot of non-committal in our language. And the non-committal is a result of the negotiation I said before that we make with ourselves around our boundaries, our values, and the way that we want to live. That includes people who are in pain who want to get out of it. It includes trainers who want to make a career of it. It includes people who are trying to build businesses. It includes people who want to be great husbands and wives, healthy parents. It doesn't matter. There's a negotiation there. I do the best I can, but I'm busy. I'm at work. I got 4 kids at home. Not an excuse. Are you going to be healthy? And are you going to be present or not? Yes or no? Because the person who says yes finds a way. The other person doesn't, but at least they're aware of it. When we say in the middle, yeah, I try my best. I mean, who's perfect? No, I say yes, and sometimes I fail. And that's it. Why did I fail? I won't fail like that again. I forget who I was talking to the other day, but they said something I thought was amazing. It was, we should try to make new mistakes. Let's not make the same mistakes that we've made in the past. Let's make new mistakes. But going back to the doing and believing or being, if I asked you, Andrew, what are the things I have to do to get in shape? Like the number of things that you would list if I got into the granularity of specificity would just be overwhelming to the point that I might as well go to Instagram for my fitness education. Right? And that's overwhelming. Eat this, don't eat this. Eat that, don't eat that. Work out like this, don't work out like that. You follow me on all of that. So it's overwhelming to think about what to do and what not to do. But if you help me understand who I said I wanted to be, what do you think I would do in that situation? You're asking me, Andrew Coates, what I should do to get fit. Just ask yourself, what do you think Andrew would do in this situation? And if you get it wrong 15% of the time, but right 85, you're going to be far healthier than you are right now. And you didn't have to think at all about what to do or what not to do. You thought about who you wanted to be. That's it. It's so much simpler.
There's something, and obviously it's a side tangent we don't have time for, but you kind of alluded to the alter ego effect, where you pretty much just imagine yourself to be someone else who is competent at the thing that you're struggling with. And there's a book about this, quite a potent thing to channel. More of a summary of what we just talked about and boundaries and saying yes and no to things. I think the book Essentialism by Greg McKeown does a wonderful job of getting clear on this. More and more the last several years, I've been much more deliberate in setting boundaries and actually saying no to a lot of stuff. Now, there are a lot of things that I value and I will say yes to, but there's a lot of people that make asks of my time, and I'll actually politely say no to a lot of things, so that way I have the room to say yes to the things that I value, but the things that I also think are high leverage to support other people. All right. Well, first of all, people can find you at Dr. Sean Pastuch on Instagram. Are there any other resources that you'd like to direct people to? And I know that you are opening a new facility in Long Island. And so you're actually looking for fitness professionals, and they don't even necessarily need to be local. So if someone's kind of likes your philosophy and is looking for an opportunity, how would they contact you?
Yeah. At risk of sending people to a bunch of different places and ending up sending them, no, they can come find me on Instagram at Dr. Sean Pastuch. If you're somebody who's out there right now and you're thinking, I want to find somebody who Sean's company, Active Life, has developed to be able to help me, how do I do that? Under my Instagram profile, you'll see a link to Active Life Professional. Add a .com to the end of that. And there's a map of everyone who we've trained to be able to support you who is still in our community. There's about 500 coaches, I believe, on that map around the country. And most of them will work with you locally or remotely. We used to take clients one-on-one. We don't anymore. We refer all of them to the coaches we develop because it's a 13-month-long process that not everybody gets through. It's very difficult. And the coaches who do get through it, they're great. If you're looking for work, hit me up directly. We'll talk about what that takes because we are opening our second location. Our first location is in Long Beach, New York. Our real estate consultant, it's a friend of mine named Jason Ciano. I think he and Stu Brower are probably the two best guys in the business. Jay happens to be local, so we're working with him. And he told me the market that we are in right now, Long Beach, where we opened our first location, would be the 11th location he would open on Long Island. And he would only open 5. He would never have opened in this market. And we're going to do $1 million this year. And all of our staff who are in there are going to make in excess of $100,000 or damn near close to it without working more than 25 hours a week on the floor. It's salary plus incentive, work as a team with vacation time, reasonable hours, upward mobility, everything that you would look for in a real corporate job with a culture that you're excited to be a part of, working with clients who genuinely value what you do. And we're opening our second location in the next 8 to 9 months. And we're looking for 4 exceptional people to be on our staff there.
All right. If anybody thinks, hey, I'm curious, hit Sean up. Everybody who's listening, thank you guys again. And Sean, I know that you're working on a book. That'll take a little bit of time. And I know that there are podcast hosts that listen, some of my friends. So I know, Sean, you would be down to get on other podcasts as well to get out there a little bit more. So anybody who's staying to the end, you are a fantastic interview, very confident and poised in the way you deliver things. Thank you so much, my friend. And everybody listening, I've got a bunch more big, great guests to record this week, and I'll be flooding these out to you guys. I'll have a new sponsor to announce very soon, which I'm excited about. Stay tuned for that. Sean, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you.
My pleasure, Andrew. Thank you.